This is our annual Click It or Ticket press conference, and we're here today to help get the word out about Click It or Ticket, which runs through the Memorial Day holiday. One of the things that the Highway Safety Commission is charged with is driving down the fatal and serious injury crashes, and one of the ways we do this is through public outreach and education, which is what we're trying to do here today.
Tell us, so where does Louisiana rank in terms of seatbelt use?
We had a recent seatbelt survey that showed that we're at our highest in Louisiana, just a little over 79%. Which is a big jump from the 12% back in the mid-'80s before the seatbelt law was enacted. Good morning. My name is John LeBlanc. I'm the Executive Director of the Highway Safety Commission. Our goal here this morning is to try to save lives by convincing more Louisiana motorists to buckle up. The Highway Safety Commission's main goal is to drive down fatal and serious injury crashes, and one of the ways that we do this is through public outreach. Last year, 79% of drivers and front seat passengers observed in a statewide survey were buckled up. That's a great increase from the 12% back in the mid-'80s before our seatbelt law was put into effect. I believe that because of that, the fatalities have fallen by a third between 2007 and 2011. This Click It or Ticket campaign is a national campaign coordinated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It runs from May 20th to June the 2nd. Thousands of officers across the United States are increasing patrols and checkpoints through highway safety grants to try to increase compliance. Here in Louisiana, we have our largest endeavor yet with 132 agencies, including state police. The Commission provides grants to these agencies to pay officers overtime, and with 132 being the largest ever, we hope to see some good results. The campaign includes the upcoming 3-day Memorial Day holiday. Last year, during this same time period, unfortunately 12 people were killed in Louisiana. We hope that because of our efforts this year, we can reduce that number to 0. There were over 20,000 citations for not wearing seatbelts issued last year during this time period. We hope that this year we have no citations issued because people are buckled up, because we know that if that happens, the fatalities will drop down tremendously. We know that for every percentage point compliance goes up, statisticians tell us that 8 lives will be saved. The law here in Louisiana requires that everybody in a car be buckled up, including the backseat passengers, which is a fairly recent law enacted by the legislature in 2009. We see the fatalities in backseats dropped. It's at its lowest point last year, and we believe that it's because of a direct correlation with this law. We want to talk a little bit about pickup trucks. They're one of our lowest compliant rates at about 72% of the state. It could be that because perhaps people feel they're better protected because they're a little bit higher, but they do tend to roll over because of that higher center of gravity. In a little while, we'll have a rollover demonstration that'll demonstrate that point. And once again, I want a special thanks to the media for helping us get this message out. And now I'd like to introduce somebody who needs no introduction, Colonel Edmondson, our Superintendent of State Police.
Thank you very much, John. I don't know how simple to put this, but one of the most safest things you can do when you get behind the wheel of a car is simply buckle your seatbelt. Look, I've been a trooper for 33 years. I came on January the 2nd, 1981. At that time, as a young patrol trooper and then as a public information officer at Troop A, we saw less than 50% of our fatalities and probably 50 less percent of individuals out there that just weren't wearing their seatbelts. And to see that over a 33-year period increase to right at 80% is a good feeling. But you know, one death is one too many. I saw early in my career, it was actually about 2 months on the job, I was dispatched to a fatality crash where when we got there, what had happened was, and look, I'm a parent of 4 kids, I certainly understand what happened. We had a small infant that was crying in the back seat. The mother had just had enough, and what she simply did was she reached back there and she unbuckled the child, she put it in her lap. It was late at night, there wasn't much traffic, so she was consoling the baby stopped crying. Well, a few moments later, the husband had to take evasive action. They ran off the road, they hit a culvert, and what happened was that glove box opened up and she crushed that child into the glove box. I was one of the first police officers there. I actually was there and actually removed that child from that glove box. The mom was unhurt. The father was belted. How unfortunate, how tragic, but it happened. Fast forward a few years later, we had an incident where here was a couple that was actually getting married the next day. They had a 1-year-old child. They were in a pickup truck. This was in Ascension Parish. They were not buckled up. Their child was buckled up properly in that seat. They ran off the road, hit a ditch. They were both ejected and killed. The child was secure in the seat. I had an incident where I'd been up with my son, who was 1 year old at the time, had been sick for several days. I was tired. At that time, there was the only 24-hour pharmacy was actually on College Drive. I left my house off of Old Hammond in Millerville, drove to the pharmacy on College Drive, got Benadryl. The doctor finally said, hey, you can go give your child a little bit of Benadryl, a miracle drug. I'm driving back home, tired. I fell asleep. Hit the concrete wall of the 10-12 split. When they took my shirt off in the emergency room, they said, Mike, we didn't know if you were wearing your seatbelt because you'd hurt your wrist, and we see some damage to the windshield. But across my chest is a seatbelt that's still there, a daily reminder when I look in the mirror about wearing my seatbelt. So as superintendent, it's so important to me to tell my troopers, as a deterrent, let's be out there, let's be aggressive, let the public see us. But to go to the scene of a crash and to see a senseless tragedy where someone could have just simply buckled their seatbelt. And to sit there and tell them during this campaign, you're going to see in the rollover exactly what happens. We don't make it up, we see it, and we see it far too often. But I guess it seems to work when you hit someone in their pocketbook and you charge them for not wearing their seatbelt. We're going to do that. We're going to be aggressive on our highways. You're going to see additional troopers out there. We're starting the 100 days of summer, when the majority of our crashes, the majority of our fatals, the majority of our alcohol-related crashes, and unfortunately, non-use of your seatbelts out there happen during those time periods. People just running to the store, running across a parking lot, trying to do too much in a short period of time, and that's when those things happen. So we're going to be out there. We're going to be out there in force, and we're going to simply try to do everything we can, and certainly as long as I'm superintendent, to make sure that our priority is that aggressive driver, that drinking driver, and that individual that's not buckling their seatbelts. It's the safest thing you can do, and not as superintendent, but as a father of kids. Make sure that your passengers are buckled up, and then make sure you're buckled up before you get inside that car and take off. It's simply the safest thing you can do.
I stopped a woman from Texas for not wearing her seatbelt, and she didn't appreciate it. It obviously wasn't an educational issue. She was well-dressed, driving a nice car, and successful businesswoman. She just didn't like the idea of wearing a seatbelt and didn't want to, and didn't think it should be enforced. And of course, we're going to do our job anyway. That's what enforcement's about. I didn't give it much thought until about a month later. I got a letter from this lady, and in her letter, she told me that about 2 weeks after I'd written her that ticket that made her so irate, that she was involved in a head-on crash, and that she's convinced would have killed her, but she was wearing her seatbelt. And she said in her letter, the only reason she was wearing a seatbelt is because she didn't want to get stopped again, and she didn't want to get another ticket. And basically, you know, in the letter, thank me for saving her life. Basically, I was just doing my job. We see this all the time. And what I'd like for this story to help illustrate is two things. One is public safety laws, seatbelt being one of them, they're there for a reason, simply to save lives. And then for our law enforcement partners, and with the assistance of Highway Safety Commission, we're going to be working with our partners with the Sheriff's Office and City Police across the state to provide the enforcement effort out there. Because at the end of the day, you don't always get the letter, you don't always get the phone call. You may not have the personal experience that Colonel Edmondson had. We don't always get what Paul Harvey used to call, you know, the rest of the story. But at the end of the day, we know enforcement efforts save lives. And that's what we'll be out there doing. And I thank you for your time.
We know that visual messages are important for outreach. Behind you we have a vehicle. We'd like to demonstrate how easy it is to get seat belted in. And we also have the rollover, so if I could direct your attention to those two things, we'll have that demonstration now.
We can tell people all day about stats and numbers and the importance of wearing seatbelt use, but a lot of people are visual and they need to learn by seeing things, and that's what our rollover simulator is for. Simulates the cab of a vehicle, maybe a pickup truck, and what it does is you put a crash test dummy inside of it, you put the seatbelt on, it spins, and it shows how that crash test dummy stays inside of the vehicle when it spins. And then on the opposite, you take that seatbelt off, and that crash test dummy flies all over the cab and actually flies out of the vehicle, and it shows the importance of why you have to have that seatbelt on.
How fast is the vehicle going?
Well, the vehicle's stationary, but it simulates, when it rolls over, it simulates about a 35 to 40 mile per hour rollover crash.
And with the seatbelt in, what happens to the dummy?
When the seatbelt is on, when it's installed properly, like a person should wear it, across their lap and across their shoulder, that dummy stays inside of the vehicle. Sometimes, maybe his arm will fly out, but you're not going to die of a broken arm. But that dummy stays inside that vehicle where he's supposed to with that seatbelt properly used.
Now you're going to do the demonstration with the seatbelt off. Tell us what happens.
Correct. Once you take that seatbelt off, you're part of that vehicle. You're going to go where that vehicle goes. You're going to fly around the cab. If there's other people inside the cab, you're going to strike them, and that crash test dummy shows that. He flies around the cab, and with the windows down of the vehicle, he actually flies out of the cab of that vehicle. The chances of you surviving a crash once you're outside the vehicle diminish greatly.
What about people that drive pickup trucks?
Those are the most at-risk populations. Some people in pickup trucks perhaps feel like they're a little safer because it's higher up, but they do have a tendency to roll over more. And when you're not buckled up in a rolling vehicle, you can be ejected or crushed by the roof of the vehicle. Click It or Ticket is a campaign that's organized by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Most of the states in the United States participate in Click It or Ticket, and it's a coordinated effort that includes media outreach and increased enforcement. There are some highway safety grants that go out to law enforcement agencies to pay for overtime to go out and work seatbelt enforcement.
Just how critical is it for people to wear seatbelts?
It's very critical. Statisticians tell us that for every point seatbelt compliance goes up, 8 lives in Louisiana would be saved.
A lot of people still don't realize that we can pull you over for not wearing your seatbelt. That is a fine. That is a monetary fine. We found out quite some time ago that by hitting people in the pocketbook, it seems to get their attention more. So we're going to continue to do it. My troopers know that it's a priority for me on the highways to be observant, to be out there. Just for the public to see us is a deterrent, but to understand that we're looking for aggressive drivers. We're looking for people that are unbelted, and we're going to stop you. We're going to give you a ticket. Why? It's just a simple thing. Reach over, grab your seatbelt, and click it. Because without it, I mean, you're going to get stopped, and you're going to receive a ticket, and it's going to cost you money. That's senseless. It shouldn't have to happen. So very simply, wear your seatbelt.
Always buckle up. It just takes a second, and it's the best insurance and the best protection you can have.
If people have questions or like more information, what should they do?
They can go to the Highway Safety website.